Hello, everyone, and welcome back to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into a genuinely fascinating paradigm shift from the philosophy of reflective humanism. We're looking at concept number 100, intelligence in remaining unfinished.
We're all incredibly familiar with this feeling. We live in a society that just constantly pushes us to produce immediate answers, right? Whether it's firing off a quick hot take on social media, establishing a rigid corporate policy by the end of the day, or literally just finding the one perfectly correct answer on a standardized test. We are relentlessly driven toward completion. We want it done, and we want it done now.
And because we live in that kind of hyper-fast environment, it's completely natural to ask, does hesitation equal weakness? When you pause, when you look at a situation and say, you know what, I'm not sure yet, society almost always interprets that as a lack of competence or a lack of confidence. It really feels like a flaw, doesn't it?
It absolutely does feel that way. But today, we're going to challenge that assumption entirely. We're going to explore why rushing to a conclusion might actually be the absolute most dangerous thing you can do for your future.
So here is our roadmap for today. We'll start with number 1, the trap of quick answers. Then move into 2, preserving the future's options. 3, unfinishedness is not lack. 4, the structure of unfinishedness. And finally, number 5, the ethics of remaining open.
All right, let's jump right into section 1, the trap of quick answers, the pressure of immediate certainty.
Think about the expectations we face every day. Our fast-paced environment heavily rewards immediate reactions, crystal clear corporate policies, and instantaneous correct answers in our education systems. But if we're being honest, the underlying anxiety this creates is just immense.
Exactly. And there are hidden costs here that we rarely talk about. Because when you force an answer to close a question too quickly, you actually damage the question itself. You end up losing your future adaptability. You lock yourself into this incredibly rigid identity that, frankly, doesn't leave you any room to grow.
Which brings us nicely to section 2, preserving the future's options, the spiral from concept number 94 to 99.
If you've been following along with us, you can trace this amazing spiral of reflective humanism on the timeline here. Starting from concept 94 on cognitive renewal, moving to 96, where we embrace the continuity of a changing self, then heading over to 98, which is all about connecting with our future self, and finally, concept 99, preserving future options.
Right, so looking at this progression, it hasn't really been about trying to predict what the future holds at all. It's actually been about asking what we must preserve today, right now, so that our future isn't lost.
So by the time we hit number 99, the whole paradigm shifts. The future transforms from the stressful guessing game into a field of options that we must actively protect.
That hits the nail on the head. And here is the core realization we need for today. To preserve these options, to actually protect that field, we fundamentally need the ability to not close our questions too quickly.
Let's explore what that actually looks like in section 3. Unfinishedness is not lack, redefining the state of completion. So we arrive at the definition of unfinishedness. It is the state in which the future self can think again. It is updatability, not immaturity. Okay, wait a second. I have to play devil's advocate here. Isn't this just a really fancy excuse for not making a decision? Because let's be real, the word unfinished usually sounds incomplete. It sounds insufficient or like you just gave up halfway through. It's a fair point, but not at all. That reaction happens because we've been conditioned to place way too much value on completion itself. Remaining unfinished doesn't mean having no answer. Actually, scratch that. It means not fixing your answer so tightly that it can never be changed. It's a deliberate, structural choice to keep the door open. There's this fantastic quote from the text that perfectly captures this. People do not gain the future by understanding everything completely. They keep the future when they are still able to ask again.
Wow, that brilliantly illustrates how premature completion actually takes away the future's ability to revise. Think about it. When you decide you understand something 100%, you've essentially shut the door on any new information coming in. You're stuck.
Let's contrast these two approaches to make it a bit more concrete. On one side, we have what we'll call the fixed point. This is rushing to answers, static evaluation, and rigid correctness.
Right, and on the other side, we have the gradient, or continuous orbit. Reflective humanism treats truth in generation not as a fixed point you just land on and stop, but as a gradient. It's about preserving our phase and our updatability over time.
So how does this actually work in practice? That brings us to section 4, the structure of unfinishedness, the mechanics of keeping the contact surface open. The crucial point here is this sequence. It starts with step 1, a question, which inherently generates step 2, space. Within that space, we allow for step 3, fluctuation, which is just the natural interference and blending of ideas.
And then this fluctuation naturally leads to step 4, a reconnection with the world, but on a higher level, ultimately ensuring step 5, an ongoing cycle of updatability. It's a pretty elegant system when you break it down.
It really is. Think deeply about that very first step. A question isn't just a vehicle to ferry you toward an answer so you can immediately discard it. A question is actually a structural device. It acts as a mechanism to minimize what we call transparent pain in the world. See, when a rigid linear system collides with our wildly unpredictable reality, there is intense friction. But a continuous question softens that collision. It keeps your contact surface with the world open, flexible, and breathing.
And that brings us to the space the question creates. It's so important to realize this space isn't just a void or some useless emptiness. It is a vital internal buffer. Inside it remain unfixed meanings, unchosen paths, and unbet versions of yourself. It literally preserves the exact room your future self is going to need to grow.
Now, let's tie it all together in our final segment. Section 5, the ethics of remaining open, applying the gradient to reality.
Look at the profound side effects that happen when we rush to answers across these different scales. For an individual, claiming a fixed identity way too early heavily restricts later change. For an organization, having super strict KPIs or over-manualizing everything might look stable on paper, but the organization completely loses its ability to learn. And zoom out to society, forcing simple answers onto wildly complex problems weakens our ability to actually reconnect with each other. Exactly. When answers dominate the future too strongly, growth just stops. The issue isn't having an answer in the first place. It's the strength and the rigidity of the fixation.
Okay, so I have to ask the elephant in the room question. Where does technology, specifically AI, fit into all of this? Because AI is basically an answer-generating machine, right?
Well, reflective humanism envisions AI a bit differently, as an atmosphere. Instead of viewing AI as some all-knowing oracle that just forces answers on us, it operates in a health scan mode. It reflects our thoughts back to us and highlights our blind spots without forcing a conclusion. It actually helps maintain our cognitive homeostasis, generating a much-needed space of silence rather than just drowning us in more information.
And this interaction is guided by what we call the ethics of distance. It's the delicate art of touching without touching too much. It's a non-interference ethic that allows human and AI to coexist smoothly. By deliberately not forcing meaning, this ethical framework honors the very profound promise of simply seeing the world with care.
So if you take away one thing today, let it be this. Unfinishedness is not about being lazy. It is absolutely not about just placing things on hold indefinitely. It is a quiet, active preservation. It is the vital, necessary technique of keeping the future open so that it isn't lost to the heavy gravity of premature conclusions.
So, as we wrap up this journey today, I want to leave you with one lingering thought. When you look at your life, your work, and our society as a whole, are we fiercely protecting the correct answer? Or are we protecting the space for our future selves to think again?
That's a great question to leave off on. Thank you so much for joining us on this explainer. Keep those questions open, and we'll see you next time.